Welcome. This is The Election, a production that has been prepared just for you, our valued viewer, to ensure we keep you up to date with everything that is happening concerning the elections in 2022. A historic moment indeed, and you can keep it interactive on our social media channels at KUTV_Kenya on Twitter, on KUTV Kenya on Facebook, and you can also find this streaming live in case you're having a problem with your signal on our YouTube channel at KUTV Kenya. We have a very able technical team that is making sure that this production reaches you and gets you everything that will come to you. Now, earlier on, we were in our conversation with Kilion Amolo, our political analyst today, and we were actually, we hinted on engaging on matters of application of technology in our elections. Now, looking back, because fortunately you can be able to look further than I can, looking at then and now, what do you see as being the impact of technology? Has it been a positive one, a negative one, or what is your determination on that?
Okay, I'm seeing some positives because previously when things were done manually, you go and vote in a particular polling station, and then tallying takes place elsewhere. The process of transferring votes from where the voting took place to where they are going to be tallied, several boxes containing votes used to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, the entire process was a bit compromised. But now when things went digital, you will just key in those forms from the polling station, and it's relayed directly to the Iabc server. So I'm seeing a situation in which the digital voting system has fastened the transmission of results. It has been a bit much faster, and it has also made the entire credible process to look a bit more credible, because the chances of tampering with the votes when they were physically moving from one place to another will not be there. People used to be attacked because you would have the candidates of agents moving with the votes together with electoral officials. But in the process of doing so, people used to be attacked, and then votes used to disappear in the bush at night, because when voting ends in the evening, obviously the transportation will take place at night. And that is where people would come in and take advantage of the entire process. But right now, with the digital system, that is a thing of the past.
A thing of the past, but we've also had issues about like the Kimskit, like the presidential aspirant in the Roots Party, George Wajakoya, was not able to actually be able to vote, and for a moment even the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate, running mate, Martha Karua, had an issue with that thing. Even Rigathi Gachagua was actually marked out on the manual system. Now, do you think like the move to go digital all the way is still something that we should hold back, because we are yet to like find a footing properly in using the digital means? Like even in the USA, you find like even your votes are mailed. You can mail your vote
through the
and
post
matters
office.
like that.
Yeah.
Before we get there, do you think we should actually slow down?
I don't think we should slow down. What I think is that IBC, the way any system that is used in an organization, is supposed to be tried in phases. And when you try it in phases, you see how it is responding and how it is working. And the limitations that have been encountered are improved upon. So I would say that what our electoral body needs to do is to improve on its system. That is number one, and make it better than what they have now. And even as they improve on that on that system, they also needed to test. Like, you know, we were told that they were doing some testing with the relay of votes. Why not test the scheme kits before the real day, to avoid that failure on the actual day? You know, the way people, sportsmen, rehearse before the real sporting day. IEBC also ought to be doing something like that. They pre-test all these kits to find out whether they are functional, because some of them may not have been used since the last the last election. And chances of them going down are so high. So I'm seeing a situation in which they need to be testing them. They also need to upgrade their system, because as technology changes, you also have to change with the technology and look for things that are systems that are more advanced, systems that are more efficient in even relaying, and also more secure in the first place, because you've been told that the system is prone to being hacked. We even heard of the cases where it was alleged that the American elections were hacked, the one that happened before the last one, by some experts. So those are some of the improvements that need to be made to ensure that the system gives us the benefits that it's supposed to be giving us.
Indeed, we need to be safe from such experts.
Correct.
The experts who could actually cause calamity.
Correct.
And there's something that was of note. The Iabc had to cancel gubernatorial races in Mombasa and Kakamega counties. And this was something that was of concern because some analysts have also pointed out that it had an impact in the turnout of voters. And also some have questioned the fact that before all these ballot papers were brought into the country, the Iabc officials and also some aspirants were actually invited to go to Greece and see that these ballot papers are this way, they are okay, and here they are. But then we come back to the country on the election day and you find that there are some ballot papers that are in issue. Do you, in your perception, look at this as non-attendance of due diligence by the commission?
Correct. I would say so, because how did those things end up there if they were not taken by the concerned people? Yeah, there is a perception, there is a fear that the whole thing was done deliberately. Because why do you cancel votes on a particular day and then push it forward, knowing that people are already prepared, people are already decided? And in most parts of Kenya, people vote not just one person, but an entire team. If one of the team members is not there, it influences the way people are going to vote. So I'm seeing a situation in which maybe our electoral laws need to be changed so as to strike those powers of IEBC of calling off an election on the due day. Yeah, because if that happens, it can be abused. Another thing that I also wanted to say about IEBC that calls for the amendment of our electoral laws. Did you see the cases of some people who had a meeting somewhere with candidates, some IEB official?
Yeah, there was a report of 7 who were arrested, 4 were arrested, and there have also been a series of issues that have been turning up.
Yeah, and you find out that when such things happen, IEBC goes public to tell us that the people have been sacked and replaced. Are you getting the penalty here? Just sacking and replacement. So that penalty is a bit more mild and is going to encourage more of such cases to arise in the near future. Because if we had a very strict electoral laws in which the official who is engaging in electoral malpractices will be put into a very punitive situation, like this is what you are going to be in jail like for the rest of your life for engaging in electoral malpractices. And the candidate is also going to be banned for life from participating in any electoral process in the future. Do you think that such practices will still prevail? We need to have a case where our electoral laws are made to be more stiffer and more punitive to deal with those dishonest cases of electoral officials and also those candidates. Because I'm looking at it this way. We know the rates at which IEBC rewards those who are participating in the process. It's not a big deal. It's something small. So suppose I am the one who is employed by IEBC for like 1 week, and say I'm going to get 10,000 after that 1 week. This is probably what could have led to that. And an aspirant approaches you with a very big briefcase, right? Remember, you are foregoing, let's say 10,000, and someone is coming to you with millions. You see cases in which people can easily compromise. So to avoid that, if you know, let's look at the case of China. If you have participated in corruption, for example, we know you are going to be hanged. So if you could also have stiffer laws like that in Kenya in the electoral process, that if an electoral official does this, the punishment is this, and that punishment is so severe, my brother, these things will come to an end.
Before we go the Wajakoya way.
Yes.
Because I believe, what I'm actually finding coming out from everything you're telling me is that could it be like we have a problem with our culture in matters of integrity as a nation?
Correct. Yeah, because this is emanating from the top. We've had cases whereby someone is being elected and they go in, they say, now it's our time to do what? To eat. We also saw cases even about 5 years ago, someone saying that is it tunakula nyama. You see, you saw that?
Nyinyi mkule mfupa.
You know, those things, when you are given an electoral position, you go there because you want to eat. So people will do anything and everything to ensure that they get there. up to and including compromising those who are involved in the process.
Something that needs to change.
Something
now,
needs to
Amolo,
change.
let's walk away from the commission for a moment. Let's look at the outcomes that are coming around
Correct.
right now. Something that is of note within the Mount Kenya region, we've seen several bigwigs, heavy hitters, have been hit harder, and there won't be in the National Assembly coming in the next tenure. We don't know what will happen when the senatorial and gubernatorial results come through, but I'm asking myself this: could this outcome be actually due to the odd party alliances? Because this time around we had Kenya Kwanza, we had Azimio la Umoja, they are the two leading factions that we are seeing. Their name literally means the same thing. But the way they were arranged, could it have had a way in actually bringing, even contributing to the turnout of voters, because somehow the alliances were quite odd? It's not something that was actually seen before. It's something that is quite novel. The way they were arranged, this formation was quite different.
Correct. I agree with you that it could have contributed. We've had cases whereby someone was saying, someone is saying that so and so is put here, but it should have been the other person. So it could have contributed. Secondly, our political class, most of them were out of touch with the reality on the ground. There was a tendency to impose candidates based on loyalty and not based on the popularity on the ground. I may be so loyal to you as a party leader. I may have worked so hard to ensure that you remain standing politically, but on the ground,
it costs you.
It costs you. Because I'm not that popular, and because I've been loyal to you, you still impose me on the people on the ground. So they'll rise up and say no. That is the wave that you've seen sweeping so many people out, especially in the Mount Kenya region. They have been swept out by such a wave.
And you see the character even in the electorate, there is a change. Is it to say that the electorate is not necessarily moving in a direction that is quite one that can be determined before? Because I'm seeing like they are looking at your track record. There are some people who have been quite in the limelight, the way you're putting it across. Like even the Kipipiri former MP now, Amos Kimunya, who was right there in Parliament, the whip. But unfortunately, he has been whipped back home. Is the electorate like on this level where the elections, which has come back as something that is actually leveling them up with the political class?
What I can respond to that by saying yes, because we have an electorate, we are human beings. If you see the person we have today and the person that was there then, the person we have today is maturing so fast. The person we have today is someone who is digital, is someone who is more enlightened and more learned. So this is not someone you can sit somewhere and tell that this is the person you will go for. This is someone who will get back to you and tell me that is my democratic right to decide the person I'm going to vote for. So those are the things that used to work then, but not now. So going forward, our political class, I should actually find ways of dealing with the young people who are coming up and actually giving them even opportunities. Because most of these political parties, have you seen any one of them be giving an opportunity to a young person? Like a very young person being given a direct ticket. All those people who are being given direct tickets, they were people who are very close to the political class. And most of them, if not all of them, they were also very old and out of touch with the reality on the ground. So the people on the ground will obviously have to revolt against them.
And talking about the youth, in your perception, looking even at the turnout, the apathy with elections that were here, do you think the youth are at a level where they should actually, or they're actually ready to take the helms of power of this country?
Well, a bigger percentage of them are not ready. Because if they were ready, they would have participated in the electoral process.
And is it not a challenge of information? Do you think, because there was a talk about civic education not being actually channeled to the youth?
Correct. I think I also mentioned that in the last show when you were here, that I received a text message from Iabc on the eve of the election. Before that, there was no communication from Iabc at all. So going forward, they need to do a lot on civic education. They need to be on the ground, not just mention about civic education in big hotels, tell people this is what you are intending to do. We want to see them on the ground, educating people, number one, on why they should vote. Because when you are voting, you are putting in leaders who are coming to participate in legislation. And this legislation is going to affect you, it's going to affect your business, it's going to affect your investments, it's going to affect your future, it's going to affect your families, it's going to affect the future generation. So if such things can be enlightened, if the young people can be enlightened on the same, to know how important it is to participate in the political process, then they can improve.
Indeed, it's very important because usually what we are seeing and what we have actually witnessed even through the whole 6 months campaigning period, we find the youth are very, very active. There's a very huge number during the campaigns. That is where you actually see their impact. You see that the crowds are full of young people.
Correct.
But when it comes to the voting, they are not there. And their voices totally being submerged. In fact, in these elections, you've not seen a turnout that we expected.
And we saw most of them cheering up Wajakoya, because Wajakoya was mentioning things that they want to hear, things that identify with young people. You know, these things that you tell the people not to do. I'm sure all of us, we evolve from one level to another. At a time when you are in a particular age group, there are certain things that will speak to you, or when if someone begins to talk about them, you'll listen, because they identify with your daily lifestyles. For example, Wajakoya was talking about bangi. You know, most young people smoke, and they will do it secretly. And even those who don't smoke, they still believe in the same, because they have friends who do what? Who smoke the bang. So tell a young person about bang, tell a young person about these obscene things, they will rise up very, 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 very fast to come and identify with you. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we need to enlighten our
youth. And speaking, the way you've actually said about Wajakoya, it brought the idea in my head, like, we have two leading factions. What is your perception on the third force? Because the third force seemingly is Wajakoya.
Correct.
Do you think like he will be able to edge part of like a scene in the political arena? Will he be able to secure a margin, or rather, will he be able to even garner something that can even work for him even in coming elections?
As of now, he might not get a significant following that will make him to have a voice to speak. But going forward in the future, we will see even whoever wins might be interested in working with Wajakoya, because there could be a few things that he was mentioning, in as much as they were weird, they are also practically possible and can be beneficial for us in the economy. So I'm seeing a situation in which going forward, because when the results are declared, irrespective of the side that it goes, whoever wins will want to reach out. And the best way of reaching out is by identifying your competitors. And you're like, look, what is it that we can do together? Yeah, that is the best way of also bringing political stability in this country. Because without political stability, there is something in finance called sovereign risk. The risk that is inherent in doing a business in a particular country that stems from political factors. Over the last 10 years, we have witnessed cases in which so many businesses have fled out of this country, multinationals, because of a very harsh political environment, which is leading to a very high cost of doing business. We've had cases in which someone will produce goods in another country and factor in the cost of transporting them to Kenya, and they will still be cheaper as compared to manufacturing in this country. So those are some of the things that we need to work on as a country. We invite people, come together and find how we can make the climate of doing business in this country to be conducive enough. There is one person whose idea I want to use is called David Ricardo. Ricardo came up with something called the theory of comparative advantage. That is now in international trade.
Educate us.
So what happens is that a country cannot export goods to another country if it does not have comparative advantage in manufacturing those products. And that means the cost of doing business must come down. And when the cost of doing business comes down, you can produce those goods and take them to another country, and they will be cheaper than goods coming from other countries. That is comparative advantage we're talking about. And that is why you will find that countries with a very low cost of doing business, they will be doing a lot of exports to other countries. And as goods flow from your country to other countries, even the strength of your currency increases. The local currency becomes strong. But you see our shilling has been weakening.
Plummeting, clearly.
Yeah, because when you compare what we are taking out and what is coming in, we are importing than we are exporting. Yeah, so that is why I expect whoever takes this election to go and call out others, reach out to them, engage experts and tell them, look, what is the way forward? What can we do to jumpstart this economy? Because we all agree that things are not right.
Are you hinting at a coalition?
A coalition might not be possible in the current constitution, but just reaching out. Reaching out can mean that if I don't work with you, I work with somebody who is close to you, with your blessings, or someone who comes from that particular region who might feel that they have been not included in the political process. Yeah, but what we want is to have political stability in this country, so that the companies that left this country, they can begin to come back when they realize that the cost of doing business has reduced in Kenya. Yeah.
And I'm also going to ask you this. Now, looking at everything that you talked about, you're talking about security.
Yeah.
Because investors won't be comfortable.
Correct.
Because of the whole security situation.
Correct.
So I'm going to look at our security systems right now during these elections.
Yes.
In previous elections, we have had a lot concerning police brutality.
Correct.
And this whole situation in the current election, we've seen responses from the security agencies. Last night in West Pokot, a tallying center was attacked by youths who actually broke through, but police were able to cast them away. And for this reason, they actually arrested some and actually put them for questioning. And it was something that was quite commendable, because in my view, what happens in another situation like that is that we only pick up dead bodies. So I'm saying police are responding in quite a manner, in my perception,
Correct.
is quite positive.
Correct.
What's your take on that?
I agree with you. Partly because, we have gone for an election almost for the first time when there is no opposition. You get that? So in as much as the main protagonists here are garnering for votes, they are also seeing themselves are very close. One is a deputy president, another one is a former prime minister who has been dining with the current president. So this, as the way I'm seeing it, has contributed to the fact that it is very difficult for you to send people to go and beat someone, because we are talking about people competing, seeing themselves as brothers and what?
As sisters.
That is number one. Number two, the entire tallying process, I would say, has been done very transparently. We've not seen any cases of complaints. We have not seen someone saying that, oh, my votes. By now, actually, the last election, by now we would have had 10 press conferences from both sides of the political divide. But so far, we have not seen any. Meaning that they are very comfortable and they are very, very confident in the entire process of tallying. Otherwise, they would have raised what? Eyebrows. But we will see those pressers coming in maybe when the official results have been announced.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'll be actually waiting for that, because like everyone in the country is actually waiting for that moment they'll be able to actually keep back to their lives. They just want to go back to normal, because the election period, it's quite tedious. It may be a couple of days, but it's something that is very tedious. And to you at home, be sure, right here on KUTV, we'll be actually giving you updates in our subsequent bulletins, in our shows each and every day, to ensure you are up to date with everything that is happening. All of our social media handles, you can actually link up and be able to come back to us and be able to actually interact and question us. We'll actually have everything that you need, because we are here for you. We are the fourth estate. That is our name, and we'll stand true to it. We take a short break right now, and after this, discuss with Kilion Amolo, who has been able to actually bring us up to speed with how matters went on before time and even now.
Repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more, only on Law Matters.
Lola is an app that gives you a chance to watch videos, listen to audios, and read articles wherever you are for free. Motivational stories, dramas, campus life, technology, lifestyle, adventure, sports, academics, jobs, entertainment, and more. Download Lola now on Play Store. All you need, you got Lola.
Things you know are right. Nothing worth the gain you attain by sudden flight. Don't you know that I still care for you? We flip-flop, got me needing more and more of you. And be the one to catch you.
Far East, welcome to the empire. Far East, because we find true love. You will see what your love has done for me.
This is the election 2022, and on social media handles you can find us at KUTV_Kenya on Twitter. The hashtag is the elections 2022. We're having our discussion here with Killian Amolo, our political analyst today, and he's actually keeping us up to speed with everything concerning the whole election situation in the country. Now, Killian, we proceed with our discussion.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask you about matters of litigation, because like a few days to the general elections, we had cases going to court and back, some even somehow antagonizing the whole election process, even concerning the manual register and all that. What do you think? Do you, in your perception, view like too much legislation may be something that may actually even perturb the whole election process?
Correct, I agree with you. Too much litigation can affect the entire electoral process. We saw even through legislation us having candidates who are not meant to be candidates because in our own understanding maybe they did not qualify, but still they ended up being on the ballot because of the same court process. So I agree that something needs to be done in as far as the litigation for political processes are concerned. Yeah, something needs to be done to avoid this. Someone will go to court today and get a court order to force you to put that person on the ballot. When you've done your scrutiny and you found out that this person should not be on the ballot. So maybe the threshold of taking these cases to court also ought to be increased.
And do you think it also has a role to play in the fact that right now we are actually waiting for results, and when you look at the portal, we are almost around 98% of Form 34 is already come digitally, but this time you're finding that the Iabc has put it requisite that the returning officers have to come to the National Tallying Center before anything is actually transmitted to the public. Do you think like the Iabc is actually playing safe because of all the loopholes that can be found maybe by anyone within the country to challenge the whole election process?
Correct. IBC is playing safe. In the last election, we've had cases where a returning officer could not be traced, and the results had to be declared before that officer comes back to Nairobi. The officer had not traveled day in, day out, week in, week out. The officer was away. That is number one. Number two, the election of 2007. I don't know whether you remember the famous Tarakaniti.
I was a very young man, but I remember the story.
Yes, the Tarakaniti case here is where the votes that tilted the outcome of the presidential elections. The votes that came there were so many, more than even the actual population of Tarakaniti right now as we talk. Yeah. So to avoid a similar occurrence, because I can key in things on the system which are not this, which are just fictitious. For example, I've not keyed in the real things. I've just done my own things. So there is a need for these people to go with the same physical manifestation of what was keyed into the portal. Yeah, so I see them keep playing safe, right? So that if the thing goes back to court and it is nullified, I'm sure the next thing would be the entire IEBC now being disbanded. Yeah, because they should be conducting elections within the law, and the outcome of the process needs not to be challenged successfully in court. Because if it is challenged successfully, it means there were some malpractices that they participated in. Yeah, so they are playing safe by ensuring that those physical forms are actually there at Bomas.
And what do you think about the whole tallying process? How have you seen it? Because there is a lot of, even if you were to look to our bulletins like last night, you'd see like the polling officers, they are in line just the way the voters were. Now it is them going to bring all the tabulated results. What do you think about the tallying process right now? Because it's something that is quite novel, not something we saw in the previous elections, but the whole stringent way that it's being carried out. What's your perception on this?
Maybe going forward, something needs to be done about it, because there is no need for you to do something digitally.
And physical.
It's like you are duplicating the entire thing, and that is why it's taken too long for the results to be released. Because we know there are some parts of this country where to get your means of transport to Nairobi is a very big nightmare. Yeah, so they need to find another alternative way of doing it, which is still within the law, to ensure that the time that is spent in releasing the results can be shortened. If it has to be done physically, that is. If it has to be done physically. Or they say that you can even give timelines and say that if the election results have been declared today, the same day, or let's say within the next 12 hours, you should be at Bomas, for example, within the next 12 what? If it is practically possible. And even have, we've seen politicians moving around. Why not airlift these people to shorten the time that is being spent in the entire process? And it will also reduce anxiety. We've had cases of people, I think you've seen this in the social media, who have not been eating over the last 3 days. And people who are also not doing anything, not even going to work. They're just anxious. And waiting,
and
correct.
Many businesses actually locked up because
correct.
people
Because
are
of
still
this. Yeah.
feeling insecure.
Very true. If I am an investor, for example, let's say I sell mboga or I sell onions or tomatoes, why should I go and buy, and the results might be announced, and then people begin fighting and all my business stock just goes like that? Yeah, so those are some of the things that are being affected. The businesses are not operating right now, and even if they are operating, very minimal, because people are very, very scared. Yeah.
In Killian, our political arena seems to be quite a dramatic affair.
Correct.
And even looking at the president who's actually moving out of power, the fourth president, there's been quite a dramatic event between him and his deputy who's also running to be the president.
Correct.
Yeah, and indeed, the run-in between the current president, the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and his deputy, Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, has been one that has been all over. As in, they began in 2013 in a quite a friendly manner. We used to see them, the brothers, they used to say the kumi yako, kumi yangu.
Correct.
But coming now to this period, within the second tenure of their run after the 2017 polls, we've seen quite a change in their relationship. And our reporter Samson Joro was able to compile a report that actually brings out the whole image of how flexible, how changeable the whole political arena can be for any politician. Take a look.
Having a thick skin is a prerequisite for immersing yourself in the world of politics and politricks. This is characterized by occasional backstabbing, routine betrayal, double-crossing and underhanded maneuvers to at least give you a shot at the Kenyan presidency. These scenes have played out in the Jubilee presidency soap opera starring President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Samoei Ruto, who since their fallout marked by the famous March 9, 2018 handshake at the steps of Harambee House, where President Uhuru Kenyatta brokered a peace deal with the then opposition leader Raila Odinga, a public spat between the former Hague brothers has been witnessed over mainstream and social media for the past 4 years. Recently, a new revelation of the details about the genesis of the fallout was introduced to Kenyans in form of a voice recording of Deputy President William Ruto putting President Uhuru Kenyatta's initial reaction on the spotlight after the nullification of the 2017 presidential election by the then Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga September 1st bombshell heard all over the world at the Supreme Court of Kenya.
Mimi nataka niwaambie, najua tulienda kufanya uchaguzi tukashinda. Huyu mtu akaenda pale akakoroga, ikasemekana turudie uchaguzi, ndio watu wengi. Hii ni kwa sababu gani? Watu wengi walikuwa nafikiri sasa ikisemekana turudie uchaguzi ati tutawachana na Uhuru. Sijui kwa sababu gani watu walikuwa naamini hivyo, lakini mimi nilitoka hapa kwa ofisi na nilikuwa nimemwambia Uhuru, hii chunga hapo iko Kiingereza. Akaniambia hapana, nimechunga kabisa, kila kitu iko sawa. Kulikuwa na mtu mwingine anaitwa Nje, sijui nani. Mwisho mlango kumbe ilikuwa wazi, wengine wakaingia ndani wakaharibu, si ndio? Mimi nikatoka hapa nikafika State House. Kufika State House nikakuta rafiki yangu ako hapo. Sitaki kusema alikuwa anafanya nini, kwa sababu sisi ni wazee. So, ni huyo sasa hii maneno sijui nini, mimi sitaki, mimi nataka kwenda Ichaweri, wewe sijui sasa mimi sitaki, wacha tuachane na hii kitu. Mimi nikamwangalia, nikamwambia wewe, ni vile tu nilikuwa na heshima, ningemchapa kofi.
And if DP Ruto's recollection of the events are anything to go by, it is after his State House impromptu visit that the president called a State House meeting to address the matter. Then the duo proceeded to Nairobi's Bama Market, where President Uhuru Kenyatta made what could arguably be the most controversial remark in his presidency. Remarks which set the ball rolling in the bitter relationship between the executive and the judiciary arms of the government.
Si Maraga na watu yake hao wakora hao wamesema ati basi hiyo uchaguzi ipotee. Si ndivyo wamesema? Sasa mimi sana sio rais mtarajiwa. Mimi ni rais ambao amekalia kiti. We are not bothered with courts and court wamemaliza kazi yao. Wamesema turudie. Si namna hiyo. Na wamesema Iabc within 60 days. Bas. Tuagojea debe.
It is safe to say that President Kenyatta is not a stranger when it comes to taking a loss, still reeling from the 2002 general election loss to former president, the late Mzee Mwai Kibaki, despite enjoying the full backing of the outgoing and Kenya's longest-serving president, the late Mzee Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Uhuru will then take a second stab at the presidency in 2013, but will be faced with challenges of crimes against humanity charges at the Netherlands-based ICC court relating to the 2007 post-election violence. This being his greatest hurdle in the race for the state's top job, Uhuru Kenyatta, then Deputy Prime Minister, later joined forces with his co-accused William Ruto in the race to State House. In the midst of this, Uhuru approached the then Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi for a coalition pact, the evidence of this being late-night meetings in what insiders say was Kenyatta's initial decision to quit the presidential race in favor of Madividi. A few days later, after what seemed to be Mount Kenya power brokers' efforts, Kenyatta denounced the Mudavadi side pact, blaming dark forces or what he loosely termed as madimony for misguiding him.
Na ni wengi ambao wako na uwezo wa kuongoza Kenya. Tunaelewana? Hata mimi majaliwa ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Lakini na ndipo mimi nasema sijali ni nani. Faida ni Wakenya tutawapeleka wapi?
After the ascension to power, Uhuru Ruto was the embodiment of a perfect bromance with the two as fast donning matching ensembles during media appearances in their first term in office, the second term being a whole new story altogether. A clear crack forming in the relationship, with politicians slowly realigning themselves on either sides of the divide, this giving birth to the Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke factions. The Tanga Tanga side pro-William Ruto, a name that arose after the president asked Kenyans to tell Ruto their problems as he Tanga-Tanga'd in the villages supervising government projects, and Kieleweke side pro-Uhuru Kenyatta, which enjoyed backing from ODM-affiliated politicians after the handshake between President Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga, a rift that further widened after most of DP Ruto's affiliates and allies were kicked out of government for many reasons, others being linked to corruption scandals. Since then, it has been a war of words and public show of utter disrespect between the once brothers of Yangu Kumi na Yako Kumi.
Nataka nimwambie my friend, Bwana Uhuru Kenyatta, wewe umenitatiza sana bwana. Umenihangaisha. Umetuhangaisha sisi ambao tulikuunga mkono. Wabunge wengi. Umetutesa. Umetumia vitengo ya kitengo ya DCI na wengine kutunyanyasa.
Hii mambo ya makelele kila saa, kichwa yako ni makelele huko. Watu wawache upuzi. Huyu Munya miaka 3 amekuja amebadilisha mambo huko katika agriculture, amebadilisha. Hawa walikuwa huko miaka 8, walifanya nini?
Hii hatuna shida na rafiki yetu Uhuru Kenyatta. Si kweli? Sisi tulimpigia kura na hakuna mtu atamfuata, hakuna mtu atamfanya chochote. Tunamheshimu kama kiongozi ambaye anaenda kufanya retire. Si kweli?
Huyu mwingine anampigia huyu, mwingine anapigia huyu. Uamuzi utakuwa wa wananchi. Kuna haja ya matusi. Kuna haja ya kuingilia watu. Sasa wakati naenda kupatiana serikali na sina uwezo, ndio niko na time ya kukutafuta. Piga story yako, uza sera zako, wachana na mimi nafanya kazi yangu nimalize.
With the elections just around the corner, President Kenyatta has openly shown his support for his elder brother Raila Odinga as his preferred successor, terming him as a champion for social rights, a fighter of corruption. The president openly terming his deputy as corrupt and should not be allowed to come close to power.
Saa hizi nyinyi watu wa kuzimia, mnajifanya hati nyinyi ni marafiki wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Nyinyi mlikuwa wapi siku ile tulikuwa tunapigia Uhuru Kenyatta kura? Hawa watu wa kuzimia walikuweko? Wanajua tulipigia Uhuru Kenyatta namna gani mpaka akakuwa rais? Nyinyi watu wa kuzimia, wacheni utapeli na wacheni unafiki. Wacheni kujifanya ati mnapenda Rais Kenyatta. Sisi ndio tulimchagua Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Na mimi hapa hasla, mimi ndio nilifanya kampeni kubwa ya Uhuru Kenyatta. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Ni kweli ama si kweli?
The Huruto dirty draws have been washed publicly for 4 years, with this going down in history as the most drama-filled regime since independence. Samson Jura, KUTV.
The murky world of political friendships. Killian, I don't know you could say sentiments like as we finalize, finally, can you like give us, what's your take on the whole political relationships?
Well, political relationships are always out of convenience, right? Interests, common interests. If my interests are consistent with yours, we will relate well. And you know, these interests keep changing. They are very dynamic. Today, this is what I want. Tomorrow, that is what I want. I want to quote Abraham Maslow's theory.
As we finalize.
As I finalize. Abraham Maslow has divided the kind of needs that a person has into 5 perspectives or 5 different types. Down here we have the physiological needs, and up there we have the need for self-actualization. And according to Abraham Maslow's theory, what you already have is not a motivator. People are motivated to attain things that they are yet to have, not what they have. So I'm already a deputy president. If someone talks that I form an alliance with him to become a deputy president, will I be excited about it? This is something I've already achieved. So naturally, being a deputy president, the next thing that is remaining for Honorable Ruto to gain a self-actualization is by becoming the next president. Yeah, so it is maybe unfortunate the way he started campaigning and the way he did it, but for every leader, if you reach a particular level, your mind and your focus is always on the next level.
Thank you very much, Killian. You know, the way you brought it out, quite fantastic. And right now I'm being informed that we are about to go live at the Bomas, where we are about to get a presser from what is happening right there at the nerve center of the elections 2020.